Hey everybody, welcome to the Inner Circle. I'm so excited because today we kind of got a guest going on. What's up, Matthew?
How we doing, Dean?
Doing fantastic. This is so cool.
Everybody.
You know, it's been such an amazing journey since we're all live together and you built that amazing course and so many things have transpired since then. And today, Inner Circle. You know, I've been doing Inner Circles for almost a decade and this is our way to stay connected. And usually I'm talking about three things: mindset, momentum, marketing, or accountability. The things that keep us going, right? We can learn a language in a month, but if we don't speak that language on a monthly basis, we lose it. And that's why we're here. And today, we got a really powerful exercise, process, system, something to put in your life that's really been a game changer for me. And it was so cool to see how much it was a part of your life.
100%. You were talking about journaling.
Journaling.
Yeah.
Like, and here's the thing is, so many times, again, been doing this for a decade. If you're brand new, pleasure to have you here today. If you're part of our family, I see your beautiful faces. Great to have you back. Sometimes something as simple as journaling, somebody goes, I don't know, now give me the real secret to your success, McConaugheys. Or, Dean, no, If I look back in my life, there's no doubt that journaling, the way we journal, the way I journal has made a big impact. So I'd like to start there. It's like, especially in Green Lights, you talked about how journaling played such a big role in there. Why? How?
So, first of all, and I think this is, I don't know if it's true anymore, but for a while, journaling worked for males, but diaries were considered for girls. Like, I don't write my diary, I just write my journal. Whatever you want to call it. We're calling it journaling, right? We all have an inner dialogue going, Socratic dialogue. We all have questions. I know when I was younger, like most people, we have the questions of why this, why? And we can ask our parents, we can talk to friends, we can pray on it, we can meditate on it. But it's also really important to ask ourselves and ask those why questions, which I think are the earlier in life questions. Hopefully they remain the later in life questions too, after we've got a few answers. But it was a way to have a dialogue that was outside of my head. When you write it down, when I wrote down my why questions of what was going on with my life, or what I was confused about as a youngster, something about it took the weight and all the confusion out of my head. It will do that. Something about the actual pen or pencil to the paper, the quill to the pad, and putting it down takes it out, and you can look at it, and now you can be objective about it for the very first time. Yeah. And when it's inside the head, it can start to revolve and get cramped almost, and give you a headache, and you don't have the answer, and you forget about it later.
And be honest, it gets bigger when it's in here.
Yeah.
Do you ever have something bugging you so much, you get down, you write it down, you look at it, and you go, that's not that big a deal. I've been there before. I've done that.
There's something about it becoming tangible. When you put the pen to paper and it's in front of you. And now it carries as much weight as it actually should. It holds as much credit as it actually should. You may write it down and it may look more important than you thought it was in your head. And you're damn glad it looks more important because you're like, whew, that's good. I need to stay on that. But many times, like you're saying, you write it down and you're like going, oh, that's not
still important, just not as stressful. It's not a train wreck.
That's actually, I can deal with that. So that's why I started writing things down, asking the why questions. And again, I didn't have the answers. I remember thinking I needed to have the answers. And I've learned now, which I'm pretty sure you'll agree with, that's not what journaling's about. It's not about having the answers. Just keep asking the questions. Sometimes the answers will come later. Sometimes they're not even going to come until we're long gone from this life. But keep asking the questions.
So I got to tell you something on a personal side, and this can lead into journaling, but I could fall asleep really early, 9:30, 10 o'clock, I could pass out. I have a problem wake up and go to the bathroom at 2:33, hard to go back to sleep.
Okay.
And I've been dealing with that on and off for 20 years, and I have to tell you, part of what you're saying, when you get it out of here, when it doesn't seem so big or even so exciting. Sometimes I wake up at 2 o'clock, I'm not stressed, I'm excited about what we're doing or what's going on next, and you start thinking about it. And I found that right before I go to bed, if I journal and dump everything of the day, good, bad, or otherwise, the why questions. What went good? Why did I feel this way? Why did I feel good? Why did I feel bad? If I dump it before I go to bed, I honestly can crack that.
100%. It's wild, isn't it? How if you expose and actually make real your inventory of that day or what you plan on tomorrow, it frees so much space. I have better dreams when I write before I go to bed.
And a whole new generation, I see most of you are hopefully younger than me, but there's a whole new generation that doesn't write anything.
No.
I tell my daughter all the time, she's 16, and I'll tell her something, and she'll text it or record it. I'm like, no, get out a pen and write it down.
I don't know what it is, the science behind the physical skill. I think it has something to do with, well, most of us know how to do it, but the actual, what our pace is, it can be a piece of art. I look back at a lot of my journals or notes or doodads, and some of probably the best art I've got of how I wrote or how I scribbled or what my font was like, or was I writing cursive or was I writing print? Where did I bold print? Where did I doodle on the side? Oh, you were thinking about that. Little symbols I'll put next to things, arrows and things. All of a sudden I look at it all together, I'm like, wow, that's actually a good looking.
Well, and if it got that much of your attention, it's probably something you should look at anyway.
Yep.
So here, for helping people reach another level of success, it's like, okay, journaling is just a tool in your toolbox, right? How do you break it up? Because there's some things I know, at least in my journal, I will journal something creative. I have an idea about, heck, the event we had together a year prior. I still have the journal where I said, I want to reach out to McConaugheys. I told you about what the book meant to me. I told Tony to listen to it. I said, I got to reach out to him and his team. Let's see if we could do more. The world needs more McConaugheys. That's literally in my journal. Yeah. And I crafted what our event was when we did it in April. I crafted in my mind how to get a hold of you and take. So there's sometimes I'm just dumping ideas. Yeah. There's other times I'm writing my to-do list for the day in there. There's other times I'm writing the shit I got to stop doing. Mm-hmm. So I get to use it as kind of a planner, an innovator, an action taker, what not to do. Mm-hmm. Is there some kind of cadence that you have, or is it just everything goes in there?
I do have a cadence. Sometimes I'll color code. I'll write those big ideas in one color. I'll write my to-do list in another color. I'll write my what not to do list. Let's cut that stuff out in another color. Sometimes I'll have 3 different journals. I want to say this about the journaling as well, though. We get great ideas, or we have a question in mind. And when we have it, we think, this is so clear, this is so clear of a truth for me, or such a important question, I'm never gonna forget it. So I don't need to write it down. Yeah. Yes, you do. Write it down. Write it down, actually, so you can forget it and look back and go, oh, there it is. Because so many times, I know with me, if I don't write something down, I have a good idea. I'm like, oh, that's such a good idea. You're never going to forget that, McConaugheys. Next day, a week goes by, all of a sudden, I've graduated onto a different thought, and I did forget. Even when I try to go back and play grab ass with my memories to go, what was that thing that you woke up in the middle of the night, you had that great idea, or you went to bed that you didn't write down, that you thought, oh, you'd never forget, that you have now forgotten. So write it down. Write those things down. Write the questions down. Write those answers down. I will have 3 different diaries for those 3 different things sometimes. I have 3 different color codes sometimes for those 3 different things. I also, a lot of time, because now I take a lot of notes, actually I do take them on my device. And at the end of the month,
you put them in?
I'll go back and transcribe into the written word, or categorize those things. Oh, this is a similar theme of something that's been bugging you about yourself this last month. Let's put that in this bucket. Oh, this is a theme about how you've been looking at life, and you've actually been feeling a lot of joy about that. And that's been kind of getting you off, McConaugheys. Let's line up those themes. These are some great ideas that I'm glad you wrote down, because I forgot that you even wanted to do those. So let's categorize those. Let's hand some of them off to my assistant who handles my schedule, so she puts them on my daily to-do list that I'm looking at, that she types my schedule. Right. But let's also have them for me, where every day I'm coming in the office when I'll paste him up, or a prayer list. How many times do we think of somebody we want to pray for, and a week later, a month later, we aren't anymore, or we aren't thinking about that person, or we're not calling that person because we forgot? You can get a long list, and I'll just put it up in my office on the wall.
I love that.
So it's right there in front of me, along next to that to-do list, or my dream sheet list of stuff I want to do that week, that year in life.
Yeah, and I know, I see some of you with journals, and I know that I'm a big advocate of it. But if it's not a part of your daily routine, it might seem odd.
Right.
But I have to tell you, I write everything down.
Yeah.
Like, I could go back to when we were working in the studio months ago and you shared with me when you got to Arizona and you had kind of a riff on there's no mountains, it's kind of going wide, and you told me what the
guy in Utah, I needed the walls.
Yeah, the guy, but you also said the guy at the hotel you were at when he was grabbing your car from you, only thing he said, when he said, nice hair.
McConaugheys, yo, great hair, dude, great hair. I was like, what? Great hair, man.
That was it.
Cool, all right, nice to meet you,
It's a tip, right? But you told me that day, and I wrote that down. But what I'm saying is, when you write, what Matthew's saying, when you write everything down, there's brilliance in the little things. I love that saying I heard years ago, little hinges swing a big door. Sometimes the littlest idea becomes something so much more, but if you're not in the moment, if you don't write it down, then it just slips by and you fall back into the hypnotic rhythm of your everyday.
And this thing about it being an uncomfortable sort of invitation to start journaling. Get past that fog, because it is a fog. I mean, the journal becomes sort of an amendment.
Yeah.
It's in your back pocket. I've written, when I don't have it on me, I'd come home with an idea on an arm, a symbol to remember, or 2 words at dinner before there were devices or I had nothing to write on. I'll write it on my arm so I get home and then deconstruct the idea, because I know the 2 words are going to spur me to the idea. Writing, again, things down so you can forget them, to remain in the conversation. How many times do I know at dinner that I'll stop and write, and someone will go, hey man, McConaugheys, where are you? And I'm going like, no, I'm not writing anything to anyone else. I'm actually writing, you said something that just spurred something, and I don't want to forget it. So I'm writing it down now so I can come back and be present in this conversation. Because if I don't write it down, I'm going to be sitting here in this conversation for the rest of dinner going, don't forget that thing, don't forget that thing.
Yeah, and then it takes away from you being present in the moment. I got a question for you. You've had employees in your life. I probably had a little bit more because of just different worlds that we live in, but when you had a production company or you have a charity that you have people running your charity, how do you feel when you're sitting around people that you want to share your vision for your charity? I want to open up 20 more places. I want to keep us at 86% of the money goes to the kids that need it. How do you feel if there's 5 people sitting around and 2 are writing it down in a journal and one's like, oh yeah, it's a really good idea? I know. You know what? I'm going to go a little deeper. You know what else bugs me too? And only about 20% of them get it right, is when you're with 5 or 6 family members and the waiter or the waitress comes over with nothing and doesn't write your order down. I know one of them's getting screwed up.
Yep.
And I feel the same. I feel the same when I sit with my team members or I sit with somebody new and they're like, tell me your idea. And I thought about it for months. I journaled on it for months. Now I'm going to deliver it to you and you think you're going to remember it. Anyway, I just wanted to share.
Well, how do I feel when 2 out of 5 of my employees or people I work with are writing it down and the other 3 aren't? I'm feeling like we're 3 short. We're 3 short of writing it down, and I. It is funny though. I don't know if it's just not a habit, or if there's some sort of taboo, because it's doing yourself such a favor. It's taken so much pressure off of you. It's taken away anxiety later on to have to, again, play grab ass with that good thought, or play grab ass with that, wait, I thought I came up with the solution of how I could quit doing that bad habit, or that thing I wanted to do, that to-do list, that little reminder. It's so simple to do, and I think once you do it, you just start practicing a little bit, and you don't be embarrassed. No, it's not an embarrassing thing to pull out. You can pull it out anywhere. Doesn't matter. No matter how formal the event, you can pull it out and write something down. And if you don't have it on you, grab the napkin.
Yeah.
Always have a pen on you. That's a great thing. If you don't want to carry just your journal on you everywhere, have a pen on you. And write on the damn napkin, the coaster. Some of my best stuff is from coasters, from bars I was at around the world, where I filled up the coaster, kept it, put it in a Ziploc bag, pulled it out, and some of that stuff ended up in my book.
Yeah, I mean, how many of you have had an amazing idea in your life and you know it slipped by because you caught back up into your hypnotic rhythm of life? Napoleon Hill called it a hypnotic rhythm. And when you get in a hypnotic rhythm, you tend to drift. And what he meant by that is you want these other things. You know you're meant for more. You want to dig in. But this life, the getting up the same time, doing the same routine, it gets you in this hypnotic rhythm. And all of a sudden you drift, meaning you never really go for what you're really meant to do or meant to be. And you get to be 60, 70, 90 years old and go, shit, I missed it.
Well, it's another way, when I talk about rent and own, the drift is we sort of lean in and have little affairs, little rental affairs with things and places and people and values in our life. And we never quite put 2 feet down. We never quite give our whole heart or our whole mind. And part of that journaling is you go on the drift, but you're going with a certain constitution that you've raised, that you've defined. And that drift, you'll see when you're drifting towards the things that will feed you, you'll end up going a little further, even subconsciously, because you've got a contract with yourself.
Yeah.
And that's evolution.
So you've been doing it for a long time, so have I. I don't even know how I know how I started. I started writing stuff down in a yellow pad before I journaled.
Old yellow pad.
And you know why the yellow pad was good for me? Do you remember, did you do that for a while?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the yellow pad, because the top page where I would make three lines down a yellow pad. That's really sloppy. So just 3 lines, like divide it in 3, and I'd put like today, this week, this month. And I'd prioritize that way. And what was cool, it was almost a habit, and why I still have this habit in my journal, is I would write down what's important. And again, when you write it down, you realize what's really not that important or what should get more importance, right? And then I put my little dreams over to the right, like someday I'm gonna do this. And then along the bottom, I'd write down the things I should stop doing. Well, what was good about the yellow pad is because if you went about a week, the front page would get all curly, you remember? And it was half ripped off and you're trying to save it. And I'd have to rip it off and I'd have to rewrite it. And it taught me this cadence that if I rewrite what I need to get done, and this is the part I want to transition into, I know you got there is busy work and there is results-oriented work. And I'm going to just share, it might not be the same with you, but what journaling has done for me is when I look at it, I could discriminate against the 2 actions and go, shit, that's just a to-do list. I've just been doing that shit because I've been doing it. But it's not really moving the needle for me where I want to go in my life. So I came up with this phrase. For me, journaling is outcome journaling. Like when I journal, I work on the shit that gets me an outcome, not just a planner. Like I hope you're not thinking, we're not talking about a planner today to plan your day. You're going to the doctor's at 2:15 and you got the Zoom call at 3:45 and you got to pick the kids up at 5. That's a to-do list. That's a planner. You can have that.
And that's
you can put
fine.
that shit in your phone. You can have that as reminders. What we're talking about is transcending that, to use this journal as the thing that says, hey, if I get this done, that brings me more towards the man or woman I want to be. If I keep doing this, I'm going further away from that person.
Let me tell you, you're right on the money, and you remind me of something that, and this was in college, when I was still journaling. I started journaling, I think, 14, but now I'm in college. And I remember being in a theater, watching a film, and I laughed out loud at something on the screen that I thought was hellaciously funny. And in the middle of my laugh, I noticed that I was the only one in the entire packed theater that was laughing. So my laugh started to kind of fade and get quiet. I was like, whoa, am I the only one that thinks that's funny? Well, through the movie, there was a couple other times that I laughed out loud when no one else laughed. But there was also a couple other times where the entire theater laughed, whoa, roared. And I was like,
what are they seeing?
That's not funny. I remembered going home and going, you need to write about that. You need to write about any time that maybe you laugh when no one else laughs. You need to write about when you cry that no one else cries. I noticed that I didn't cry at funerals, but I cried at birth. And I thought I was like, I went through the questions. Wait, am I weird? Is this okay? Is this not socially acceptable? And I was like, no, write it down. And I started to keep a track with myself in a journal of places and things where maybe I didn't think something was funny, or maybe something made me mad that didn't make anyone else mad. Maybe something made me smile that didn't make anyone else smile. Little things that you could call idiosyncrasies, but were things that ended up forming my identity. That by journaling them and having a list of them, after quite a few years, I started to go, no, that's more than an idiosyncrasy. No, that's not weird. No, that's part of who I am. So I found a lot of my identity through that. And look, some of the stuff that I journal about were where I was with the consensus. I did agree with the popular laugh. I was one in the congregation that laughed at the low-hanging fruit joke that we all laughed at. But I also made sure to pick out the ones where I was the underdog.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I'm the only one doing this, but let me write it down.
Yeah.
And something about writing it down also helped me feel like I was less the oddball. And then I actually started to get a little steam and a little pride and a little honor in being maybe
unique,
the underdog or the unique one. So that's another thing that you've been saying about journals, but we can't say it enough. It's free play time for YOU. It's yours. Remember, you don't have to show anybody this journal. Besides yourself. And you may not show yourself your own journal for a while. I wrote in a lot of journals that I was too scared to go back and look at. Hell, my book, I threatened to write the book for 20 years before I ever did because I was scared to go back and look at who I was.
Wow.
But I finally got the courage to go back and look who I was. And as I've said, did I look back? Did I have some shame? Oh my gosh. Did I look back? Was there things I did that I was embarrassed? I was like, oh, hell yeah. But I'm so glad I wrote it down because then what happened is I started to giggle and go, oh, you're human. Oh, you were growing. Oh, you were asking silly questions. Oh, you were taking stupid risks, but at least you took them. Oh, you were an arrogant little prick, McConaugheys, but at least that arrogance put you in the position to get humbled later.
Right. Yeah. I'm going to ask something that maybe you're aware of, but this is what I see. A bigger byproduct to journaling. Now, my daughter's 16 and I'm pushing her every day to journal. She journals about twice a week now. And I'm trying to nudge her to make it more fun, not just do it because dad's doing it. And I said, how I started with her, and then I want to get to where I see your brilliance is in when you wrote Green Lights. And maybe you see it. This is what I see from the outside. So I said to my daughter, just write down. She goes, well, what do you want me to journal, Dad? Is there anything specific? I'm like, write down how you felt that day and maybe why. I was in a good mood. Why? My friends did this and I did that. I'm in a bad mood. Why am I feeling off, insecure, feeling lonely, feeling sad? Just write down you are. It's okay. Write down why. And then what you're going to detect, kid, is over time you're going to look back and go, wow, there's a pattern. If I do this, if I exercise and I practice and I hang out with this one girl, damn, I feel good.
Amen.
But when I hang out with that other girl, she's always talking about shit or makes me feel bad about the decisions I make. I feel shitty about myself. And I said that to her and she's like, it's that simple? And in my head, I'm like, well, shit, it is. It's like, it is that simple. And so it leads me to why I see the brilliance and why Green Lights caught fire. I see why Road Trip is probably one of the best-selling courses now in the history of the world. It's because you've journaled for so long that I believe when you went back, without even, maybe you do realize it, is you saw the patterns. You always say, I'm not making straight A's, I don't have the answers. I get that, and I love that humility about you. But also, you got to make some straight A's in areas of your life because you got to look back and go, hey, this is your term. I did step in shit there, but I'm not going to step in that shit anymore, right? So did you, a couple of questions. Now I want to dig into the book. Did you see patterns when you were going through all that?
I did. I saw patterns of where I succeeded, where I got what I wanted, and I went back and looked at my journaling, and I had consistent sort of habits of how I woke up in the morning. My habits when I was reading my Ogmandino in the morning, and noon, and night. My life then, I would notice I was catching a lot of green lights. Calling my mom every Sunday as a habit. What I was eating, who I was going out with, how much I was having to drink, how much would I study for a test and how early would I study or how late. Certain habits, I noticed I would have flourishing months where I was like, man, you were rolling relationally, school was rocking, your health was good, your spirit was strong.
Got a hole in
one. You felt in tune, got a hole in one. You were seeing the world, all men as brothers and all women as sisters. You weren't objectifying people or yourself. And then I'd have months where I was like, that is kind of a rough month. And I'd go back and look, and I was not following some of those habits. I had said, I'll talk to mom. I'm busy this Sunday. We got this intramural game. I'm not gonna give her a call. Or, you know what? I know the test is Monday. I'll wait till Sunday night to cram for it. And I stressed more about the test and didn't make as good of a grade. I hanging out with some people that were fun, tried a new thing, but damn it, the whatever's in those drinks at that bar, or the conversation that we had, I didn't feel as good on Saturday morning, and I slept a little later, and I kind of felt kind of a hangover about where I was and what I talked about and did the night before. So I found places where I could rearrange and go back and go, oh, let's go back to those months and times when you were flourishing. Let's pick those habits back up and see if your life gets back in line. You get out of the rut. And sure it shouldn't, man.
It did.
It did.
Yeah.
It did. And so I also noticed this, and I think this will happen when you journal, and any lifelong journalers will know this. I'm curious how you feel about this, is that I noticed that I remembered more than I thought I forgot. Meaning, journals, part of journals that I didn't look at for a long time, I went back and was like, oh, you did that. For instance, that 10 goals I wrote in 1992.
Yeah.
I find that goal sheet 35 years later. Have not looked at it in 35 years. And if I look at it and go, man, you're either done or in the midst of doing all 10 of these goals.
Yeah. Did you ever see that Harvard study about goals? They said the only common thread of the most successful people went out. It was just a 30-year study. And different academics, different background, different grades, went into different professions. But the most successful people had one thing in common. They journaled.
Really?
And wrote goals. Journaled and wrote goals.
What is that? That projection that you put out there, that headline for yourself that you put out there, that even subconsciously we will chase.
It's like gravity.
And it will be pulled.
It's
yeah.
gravity.
Even better, you're being pulled by it.
Yeah, you're being
That's
pulled.
it. Even more than chase. That's a really good point.
My kids think I'm crazy when I say to make sure when they write their goals, and they don't do it on a regular basis. My kids aren't perfect, but when I push them, like, let's do a goal day and we'll sit, it might be a Sunday. I'm like, come on, let's just sit down and write goals. And I'll tell my kids, hey, be careful what you put on that paper. Because it's going to come true. You got to do the work. You can't just write it and not go after it. But be careful when you put on that paper. When you look at goals that way and writing it down, it's really made, it's really that big a deal. And if you hear us today talking about getting you into journaling, we're here today to provide to you the things that have been unfair advantages in our lives. And I don't think you knew it. I didn't. In your 20s when you're journaling, you're not going, someday this is going to be a book and I'm going to be super successful because I'm writing it down.
I was just trying to work out the riddle of life and get out of my confusion, have something to talk to myself.
Yeah, exactly. I love when you say, because that's the only person you got forever anyway. So, but in hindsight, in our 50s, you look back and go, shit.
Yeah.
That was one of the sharpest tools in my toolbox. It allowed me clarity. It allowed me to dream. It allowed me to write goals. It got to be my to-do list, my not to-do list. And today, before we're done, we're going to challenge you to do more.
And let me add on to that.
Yeah.
So I bet many of you are thinking, which I know I've thought, well, I'm not 14.
How do I get started?
I'm 50, I'm 60, I'm starting too late. I wish I would have started then maybe, but I didn't. It's honestly not too late. I mean, test it. Just even test it in your life for a few months and see how you progress. See how you see where your memory goes. See if you're achieving more of the things that you want to achieve. See if you're having conversations with loved ones about things that are really important to you because you've been kind of writing about them with yourself as well. And it's not too late to start. Start it right now. You can't go back, and you know you might think back when you're writing your journals. It's a good exercise to try and go back and go, how did I feel? But don't feel like it's too late, like you're starting the race too late if you haven't started journaling till now.
Yeah. So I feel like I want to confess certain things. So I went through a divorce, not an advocate of divorce, but I went through a divorce, and my parents were married 9 times. Mom 5, dad 4. By the time not to each other. My mom
9 times?
My mom was married 5, my dad 4. So I went through a lot of marriages in my life as a kid. By the time I was like 25, so it was a revolving door. I wondered why I didn't think relationships were serious. My parents, you know the analogy I used? I said, my parents were like, I got this new car. I freaking love this new car. This is the greatest car in the world. But boom, I hit a pothole. Oh, this car sucks. I'm getting a new one. It only needed a pothole to switch out cars, right? So I share that, and I went through a divorce, and I realized some of that shit kind of rubbed off on me. Like, hey, if it doesn't work out, you go get a new one. There's new cars all over the place, right? So I get done, I go through a divorce, I'm going through angst in my life. Journaling's a part of my life. I'm writing down all my feelings. I'm writing extra because I'm starting to, first time in my life, I had real anxiety because I felt I was gonna put my kids through the same shit I went through. My parents hated each other, so it was World War II every weekend when we switched. But that's not the case I had. I'm still dear friends with my ex. Everybody gets along amazing. But still, you got that lingering stuff. So I'm journaling like crazy, trying to get the anxiety out of my body. No, it's not going to be that bad. The good, the bad, and they're going to do this. And what am I going to miss? And because of journaling, I'm sharing this because it's personal. I jump on a plane, I go down and spend a couple days with Tony. You know, we're always there supporting each other. And I said, man, I'm in this weird place. I can't get out of my head that my kids are going to go through the same shit I do. I said, I still think that 7-year-old boy, me, is like it's coming out. I can't stop this anxiety. This is how important it is, and I want to share this. He said to me, pull out your journal. Because he journals every day too. He said, pull out your journal. I said, okay. He goes, draw a line down the center. He said, I want you to write on the left side what is unacceptable in your life and what would be unacceptable in a new person in your life. Because this was after the divorce was over and I was still feeling it. And I'm like, I told him that day, I said, I think I'm just going to be a single super dad forever. Because I need someone in my life that's going to love my kids the way their real mother would. Yeah. I don't think that's possible. I think that's asking too much of a woman.
Right.
So I think I'm just going to be a super single dad and I'll get through this. And he's like, so I write down all on the left of things that are unacceptable, I won't take in my life. On the right side, I write down all the things that's an absolute must. Gotta love my kids the way a real, like their biological mom would love them, and someone who focuses on tomorrow. And I wrote down all this shit, and I look, again, journaling, and I know we're getting personal here all over the place, and we'll kind of tie it together at the end. I looked at that journal, Matthew, and I'm like, well, fuck, I'm asking for a lot. I looked at that, and I didn't think, wow, if I find that woman, it'll fulfill me. I looked at it and so, man, if I want that, I better step up my game. I need to become the man that deserves that life, that relationship.
Okay.
And that day, I went to work. I got a love coach. I interviewed a bunch of people that had long marriages and how they stayed faithful and in love and all that stuff. But it was that process of literally putting a line down the center of the paper.
So you didn't go off and cross off a few things. You said, okay, I've got a gap between who I am and who I need to be if I'm
get
going
that
to get
kind
that.
of woman. Yeah. And you know, I still have that journal as well. I kept all of them. The only thing I have hundreds of journals through the years saved. I haven't looked at them in years, and I know when I die someday, the only thing I have a little fear is when they dig into some of them, my kids will be like, this was dad, right? But that's for another day.
And as you know, that'll probably be some of the best stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
At least the most comedic.
Yeah, no, exactly. But that process of thinking through that, I still think of it as such a transformative time in my life, and it was all part of journaling. And then I got to say, who do I need to become to attract that kind of woman? And I remember a few years later, I'm married or dating my wife, Lisa, who you've met, and I look at the table, my kitchen table, and I wrote down that my kids would never feel like when they went to one house they had to be, they call it fragmenting kids. If you're one, you have to be one version of you for mom and one version of you for dad. You become two different people. And therapists call it fragmenting, and at 40 they're trying to put them back together. Right? And the therapist told me that. I was like, son of a bitch, I am not fragmenting. I never heard that word before, but I'm not in that context, fragmenting my kids. And I wrote down about holidays and stuff where everything could be, and it was one of my wishes, just what you said are your goals. It was in my journal. And I came home one day, it was a day before Mother's Day, and my wife, Lisa, is sitting with the older kids working on a craft for their mom. So my wife was working with my kids.
There, yes, there's no.
And I walked in and I'm like, son of a bitch. Like, I'm the luckiest man alive. So again.
But let's go back. Let's unpack that a second. The writing of that ultimate list, and then you going, I got to be intentional about becoming the man that has earned that woman.
Yep.
Sounds like you did that work, so you found that woman.
Exactly.
And without writing it down for her, she's already doing something that is the antithesis of fragmenting. She's doing exactly one of those things you wrote on the list was about that moment right there. Her with your kids writing doing something for their mother.
Exactly. And what I want to share with you today, I know some of you are in a great place and you're ready for that next level. Some of you are okay, you just kind of not either bored or not satisfied. That's great. We shouldn't be satisfied with complacency. And some of you are in a tough spot and you might be going through a divorce, a breakup, a change, a health issue. Here's what I want to say. Those moments for me, I look at all the craziness in my life. That was my most stressful time. And if I didn't write it down and get real, Tony says something. He says, once you write it down, you look at it and go, don't make it better than it is. Don't make it worse than it is. Just see it as it is, right? Because we can catastrophize, if that's the word. If I left this, I'm never going to find a woman that's going to love my kids, that's going to do this. It gets so big in your head. And then I wrote it down. I'm like, well, that's a pretty damn good list. I got to change my tune and become a better man to get that.
Amen. That's a really cool example of finding the best in ourselves out of writing down what we expect from someone else or hope and dream.
Man, we could go down a rabbit hole for that.
But you said a few things here that I want to just point out that it is assets of journaling. Even more than awareness, you get conscious.
Yeah, that's a good comparison.
And even what comes after conscious, being conscious of who you are, what you want, what you don't. Example, what he just said, you then become intentional.
Oof.
Now you got your hands on the wheel. Now you got your hands on the wheel and you have deliberation and discernment.
Yeah.
And proper healthy judgment of what you stand for, what you stand against, what you want more of, what you maybe need to have less of to have more of. Now you have intentionality and you're going forward with, unpack that word, purpose, direction. You have a vision. And when you don't have a vision, you can go back to your journal and go, where did I learn? What was I aware? What am I aware of? What am I conscious of? And what am I intentionally going after? That's awesome. Now you're playing real offense in your life.
Yeah, I just wrote down, I made it a simple word. I always called it my not to-do list, stuff I got to stop doing. But being intentional has a byproduct of doing that anyway.
Yeah.
Because if it's not intentional, you got to stop doing it.
Right.
And if you have discernment over that and say, is this habit of hanging out with the boys on Thursdays and Fridays, is it a habit that I truly enjoy anymore? I'm just using something because I remember that in my life. I remember a certain phase where the guys are like, come on, we're going to meet again. And I'm like, every time I go with those guys, we talk shit about other people. We complain about politics and I have a headache the next day.
Right.
I don't think that's intentional. That got me out of Egypt. It's not taking me to the promised land.
And it was choosing you.
Right.
You weren't choosing it. You weren't intentional about choosing it.
Yeah, and I remember the day I was like, I think I'm going to stop doing that.
Yeah. I mean, we all have them. I've got them in my life, I know, and that I try to measure to go, well, what's choosing me and what am I choosing? You know, I've had times in my life where I'm like, go make a drink. Because it was, I don't know, because it was sundown. It was 5 o'clock, whatever that is, right? And I looked up and I was like, did you ask yourself if you really wanted to drink right now? Or you just kind of do it out of habit because it kind of chose you? And I was like, oh.
I've done that exact same thing.
I don't know. It kind of chose me. And I was like, well, I'm not saying you can't have a drink. I'm just saying, like, choose it. Be intentional about it, that thing you choose rather than just going, yeah, I'll go with the boys because that's where we go. That's what we do on Friday night. Or I'll have the drink at 5:30 because, hey, that's just Friday somewhere. And I got I'm not saying quit partying, quit having a good time. I'm saying be intentional about it. About all these things. Then you're playing, again, then your hands are on the wheel. Then you're playing offense. And doggone it, it's true. That's what writing these things down that bring the awareness to consciousness, and then the intentionality and purpose to what we're doing. Write it down.
I mean, purpose, we only have a certain limited time on this planet. We know that. And we only have a certain limited time each day. And so many times we're putting off that thing that we're dying to do until there's a different president, until the economy changes, until our wife believes in what we do, until the kids get out of school. And then 5 years goes by like that. I found high level, we're talking high level now, but I found high level the more I write down in my journal all the stuff that goes in here, all the stuff I learn, all the stuff I want to accomplish, all the things we're talking about. I can truly see that, and this, I'm going to ask you about this one. I can truly see what are the needle movers and what aren't.
Yeah.
And when I say a needle mover, listen, we all have a different purpose. We all have a different why. Matthew started this whole thing today with writing down the question, why? Why do I want this? Why do I want to make more money? Why do I want more love? Why do I want more passion in my relationship? Why? If you really dig in, package why, you always find the reason. Parents didn't have love. I'm going to have it. Parents were always broke. I'm not going to be that way, right?
And you answer the why first, which is the most important question. Then you start to figure out some of the answers of how.
Exactly. Why always comes before how.
Yeah.
Right? So the reason I'm saying this, when you write things down, you realize things shift, I believe, quicker than anybody else.
Yeah.
If you asked me what was really important to me, a purpose when I was in my early 20s, well, I was broke as a kid, and then I found a little bit of success and started a firewood company and a tow truck company, and I had a collision shop. I started making more money than most people in my little town. What was really important to me? Well, one was retiring my mom because she worked so hard, and I did that. I remember it wasn't a lot of money, but she stopped working, and I was able to give her a check every week. That was huge. You know what the second most important thing in my life was? Once a month on Thursday, I could jump on a plane for 2 hours and go party in South Beach. I could dance on tables and do bottle service. I lived in a trailer as a kid. To be dancing on a table with a light stick in the 90s, with a bottle service and a bunch of pretty ladies sitting around, that was my purpose.
That was a ticket to Neptune.
That was a ticket to Neptune. That sounds like the most horrific thing on the planet today. Well, not as horrific.
But not then.
But not then. It was my purpose. Right? So the more you journal, the more you find what is intentional, what moves the needle towards who you are today. What's important to me today? I like to be there for my kids' softball game and baseball games and coach and take them to school. So you find these different things as you go, and then you give yourself permission to go, hey, I'm a little nerdy now. I like to be out with my wife 2 dates a week. I like going to softball. I don't like missing any game. And I know this is straying from journaling, but I'm telling you, all this purpose comes from this beautiful tool that's in our lives.
Yeah.
I've written down in my journal, and last thing I'll say, and I know you have a note there, is I remember thinking, why do I make every single game that I can? If I'm traveling, I can, of course. But if I'm in town, no matter what, hour away, I want to go. Because I can remember my son or my daughter having a good game or a bad game. And there'd be a certain moment, they don't get done and go, oh, Dad, thanks for rearranging your whole busy day to come watch me. You don't get that. I believe kids when they're 30 go, damn, my dad did a lot, right? Thank you and I'm sorry, right? When they're 30. But I can remember those moments where my daughter would make a mistake or do good, my son, and look over and catch me in the stand and then look back and I caught it.
Right.
That's my driving to go. Anyway, I digressed a little bit.
No, you didn't.
But all those things are a part of my journaling.
I want to say this, you know, when this term, and it's a good one, it's find your purpose, find your purpose. And we go, what's our purpose? It can be an intimidating thing to think of, okay? But what you can get from journaling and what Dean's defining right here when we talk about awareness to consciousness to intentionality. With intentionality and being intentional, you start to do things with purpose. And I'm going to argue to say that that's a lot of times how we find our purpose, when we just at least start doing whatever it is in our life. Instead of being overwhelmed with, what's my purpose? No. Just start doing things with purpose, whatever the small thing is.
Yeah.
And when you start doing things with intention and purpose, you're a lot closer to finding out what your overall purpose is.
So good. It's like, I reference it only because we both read that common book, Ogmandino, when he says, don't let your thoughts control your actions, let your actions control your thoughts. It's kind of the same thing. Start going in a direction. At least if you're going, you go, hey, I don't really like, I'm gonna swerve over here. I'm gonna get off the highway. But I kind of like the direction, but maybe just a different lane, you know? And you don't know till you take the action. I got something, I want to shift it a little bit and see, maybe there's nothing, because you're pretty transparent. The more I've got to know you, you don't hold much back. But when you were going through your journals, getting ready to write green lights, or the process, I'm not sure how the process where you look and writing, was there anything you got to and you're like, shit, I don't know if I could share that one? Is there something?
Oh, hell yeah.
Like maybe it made the book softened or it didn't make the book, but I would bet to say there was something that you saw and you're like, damn.
Look, there was, I was between, what'd you say, what Tony said earlier? No, what you wrote down, don't make it better or worse. That's just what it is.
It's just what it is.
Very true. at the same time, there's a few things and some phases I was in and some things I was experimenting with and thoughts and the ways, some manners with which I even wrote, because as an actor and a storyteller, I'll write from a character's point of view a lot.
Oh, that's cool.
And I'll write in their person.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
so the language becomes different. And the
Yeah.
language, if you looked at it, you could go, you need to lock me up. But I'm just actually writing from that character's point of view to just usually reveal the opposite.
That'd be pretty cool, yeah.
So, but there were certain things that I let myself. Again, the freedom of writing in your journal is you're not writing for anybody other than you. So however you feel, however many cuss words you want to use, however pagan you want to get, that's the place. It leads to a more evolved thinking, and you can look back, and there are many things I look back at my journal. I was like, oh, what were you getting at there, McConaugheys? Jeez, oh man, talk about NC-17. I just need a new rating above that. This is X, triple X, whatever it is. But another thing about journaling, don't ever erase. Don't erase. You can edit, but don't erase, because those vile, sometimes pagan things I wrote that were less than juvenile, I looked at and was like, it's okay. You were yelling. You're you're reaching out here. And then I was able to go, oh, I see what you were going through. Let me edit that, write that in a way that is much more conversational, that we can understand, that can expose a certain angst that maybe we all feel.
Yeah.
But if I'd have written it how it was down when I wrote it, when I was 17, 25, 30, whatever, at that moment, which is, again, a great thing about journaling. Don't think about, oh, I need to write this impressively. Oh, don't think about, oh, I need to write this because if anyone ever looks at it. No, it's yours. Don't try to write good, especially in your journal. Don't try to be a good writer. Write how you feel.
Yeah, so
misspell, cuss, damn yourself, damn somebody. Go for it. Go ahead. Be real judge and jury in your journal. And when you come out, you may go, gosh, dang, that's not how I feel anymore. I'm a much more of an evolved thinker now than I was then. Well, good, bravo. A lot of that has to do because you express yourself.
And then you got to be the witness.
Right
and you
there.
got to be the witness of what you expressed.
Yes. And so there are many things in the book that I looked at that I was like, well, I'm not going to put that in there because it's going to turn so many people off, or they're not going to get the point. So can I edit that in a way that is more people can understand, but it's still true to how I felt and what I believe in? So I did do some editing. And there's some stories at the beginning of, I give these little quips as I open up green lights to set the table with things that I've been through. And I talk about a molestation. I talk about being blackmailed and having sex for the first time. Now, look, I'm very aware that I intentionally did not give a bunch of details on those things, okay? Why? For the sole purpose that I know that in my position, putting out a book, that was going to become a headline. That's not what the book's about. So I said, for me in my life, no, I'm not going to go into details of that in the book because that'll be put in bold print. And if I have a 30-minute conversation, someone's going to want to talk about that for 10 minutes. And that's not even a third of the book.
Right.
So I was conscious of that in writing the book. But there are many things I was like, no, risk reward, that's going to get in the way of a more important message, a more important truth that I hopefully is exposed and people can get from the book. So, yeah, there were a few of those.
I got a question for you. It might stray a little bit, but so many of our members have been with us for years, are in the business of taking their life, their journaling, their experience, their skill, their hobby, their passion, and turning it into a book, a course, a workshop, a mastermind. And that evolution that you went through, you turned journaling into something that impacted people's lives. And I know one time you said to me, so I got two questions. One's kind of just personal. One is, in that journey of kind of turning your personal stuff, I'll just ask one question at a time. You turned your personal stuff, found your patterns, you modeled, wow, if I follow that habit, it led to good shit. If I did this, it led to bad shit. And you made this entertaining book, you made an entertaining course. It's why both are on fire and why you're impacting people. But was there a part in the middle, this is off from journaling for a minute, where you're like, these are my stuff. Is it really going to help people? Was there a part where you're like, is it going to land?
Yes, 100%. Look, the fact that we are honest does not mean it's art.
Right. There we go. Drop the mic on that one.
Self-expression
There you go.
does not mean it's art. If that was true, all of our 13-year-old diaries would be as good as Shakespeare. They're not. So there was a lot of stuff that I was like, this is very subjective. And I overcompensated. And what I mean by that is, I said, oh, this is only personal to me. I need to go macro and speak for humanity where they can understand it. And then when I say I overcompensated, I did it to the extent in some first passes of the book where it became not personal enough.
Right.
It became not subjective enough.
And people couldn't see themselves through your eyes,
No.
or vice versa.
Yeah. So I had to find that middle ground. And I always talk about this with writing. It was one of my favorite things about going through the book. What person are you writing in? There's the first person I, second person you, third person we.
Listen to this. This is good.
The I is subjective. All right, we all own it. People can say what they want about it, but they really can't judge it because it's ours.
Yep.
They can't go, no, you didn't feel that way. No, yes, I did. It's not for you to say.
Yeah.
All right? But the I can sometimes only be for us and no one else can see it. Then there's the you. Well, you should do this or you feel this way.
You should journal. Right?
Now you're getting advice. Nobody likes advice. We don't like to be told what to do. Quit talking at me.
Yeah.
Then there's the we, the royal we, which is the honey hole, if we can get there, honestly. Humanity.
You should be journaling
experience we're all going through. The challenge with the royal we is it can become platitudinal. It can become all-knowing, like, wait, he's speaking for
us,
all of humanity? He doesn't know me. What are you talking about? So where I found the place I tried to really meld was the first person and the third person, where the I, my subjective experience, meets
the we.
The we.
Wow.
The collective experience.
That's good. That should go in your journal.
And that is when I think that's where any art comes from. Because if it's only subjective,
yeah,
it's a diary.
It's an opinion.
It's an opinion. It's okay. That's how you felt. But
you liked red
why?
on the painting. I like blue.
Right. And if it's only third person, it's like, okay. So, but who are you? How do you feel about it? Well, I don't know who I'm talking to. I don't know who's writing to me. I don't know who's communicating with me. So that meld, that connection, that overlap, where the I. It's not the I and the we. It's not the I or the we. It's the I and the we, where the I meets the we.
Wow. And tell me
really the spot.
And that probably gave you another level of confidence. Listen, in what you do, you're the best in the world, one of the best actors in the world. That's your craft. And it is a new thing, right? You shifted into doing something else. You didn't give that up, but you shifted something else. And to build, I would bet to say, if you were bouncing too much I or too much you or too much we by themselves, you're like, I'm not confident that'll land. But when you found the magic, the honey hole of the combo of like a little me, little I, little all of us, we.
Right.
Because as you said that, I can picture, say someone's going to help somebody go vegan. You could say, well, this is the way you should go vegan. You should eat this and eat that. Well, they might be saying, I tried that. I was starving. I couldn't take it anymore.
Yeah.
But you could say, hey, when I went vegan to help my body heal, this is how I did it.
And this is the assets of that. And this is how my life feels better. And if it's in ways where I'm going, that's how I want to feel better.
Right, and then you can tie in the we.
Now the we's coming in.
Yeah, I love that.
And you didn't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
You didn't give me advice. You told me a personal story, but you exposed certain things that I want as well.
Well, I think, and it's really something great to look at as you've gone through road trip. Didn't you feel like, you always talk about, I just want to ride shotgun.
Right.
But that's how you really feel. When I read your book or listened to your book, I felt like I was going on a journey with you. You weren't just talking all about you or telling me what I should do. It's like, oh, this is cool. Let's hang out and all get better together. And that's the first thing I felt, honestly, when I read the book and why we're all here right now, which is so amazing. All right. As we get towards the end here, Matthew.
When you're driving, someone's driving and you're riding a shotgun, that's two.
So
that's the beginning of we.
Yeah. All right, a couple last questions. So, there's so many people that are journaling. I see holding up journals and things like that. But what about someone who hasn't yet and said, God, how do I fit this into my life, or where do I start? What would you say was a great starting point?
Great starting point. Put it next to your bed. Starting in your day. Bookend your day. Get up. Before you get up, before you check your phone, your mobile device, before you go out into the kitchen and the world interrupts you with your responsibilities, before you pick up the phone to call somebody. And even if you got to set your alarm 15 minutes earlier, do it. It's worth it. Start that day with the you and the you. How do you feel? Your first thing you write down may be a dream you just had. Great. Journaling. Your first thing may be sitting there going like, I'm not thinking of nothing. Nothing's coming to mind. Write that down. Nothing's coming to mind.
Yeah.
Right?
So good.
Because you will have certain days where you got so much on your mind and you don't like what's on your mind, you're going to go back and go like, man, I missed something.
I wish that day there was nothing there.
But write that down. You can't. As the great Penny Allen, my mentor, used to say to me about acting, it goes for this journaling. Try and screw up. I dare you. You can't. So journaling, sit there. Give yourself 10, 15 minutes just with yourself before the world has interrupted you and told you now you're on with your day. How do you feel? Go through your body. What's going through your mind? How's your body feel? You need to stretch a little bit. Go crick back there. Lower back. What's that from? Write that down. Maybe you feel great. Maybe you smell the coffee coming from the kitchen. Write that down. Ooh, that coffee smells good coming from the kitchen. I don't know. Maybe that leads to, I like that coffee so much, I got to make sure. I've never even looked at what brand that was that my husband buys. I like that, or I need to say thank you for that, whatever that is, or whatever comes to you. Listen to your senses. You don't have to think. You don't have to come up with an answer. Just listen to your senses, right how you feel. And then at the end of the day, have it there. Just check in with yourself. It's a form, if you're a believer and you pray, writing your journal is a form of meditation. It's a form of prayer. It's a form of bending a knee to at least yourself and giving yourself some time and your subconscious some time that has earned its time. And here's the other thing about the journaling, that's why we have it on the bookends of the morning and the day. These things, if we don't write them down, these things that are buried underneath, these confusions and frustrations and biases, etc., they're gonna come out sometime or another. Some of them, gang, it's a hell of a lot better to let them come out on the page in your journal between the you and you than out in public.
True story.
At 11 p.m. on a Friday night when you get loose and it comes out in an awkward way that you end up regretting. So I guarantee you, I know there's trouble that I have avoided in my life.
Because it was on the paper.
Because I put it on the page first. And it released the pressure valve.
As you said that, I wish there's a few more times I would have done that, right?
Yes.
It's like before you hit the send on the email, you would have waited just 2 hours and read it again.
Yeah, man.
You know?
And if that leads to the bookends, if it leads to, hey, here's some things I want to accomplish today, jot those down. Bit of a to-do list. Or at the end of the day, to have a list of, maybe go through the mental exercise right now. What you accomplished today. My wife likes to ask our kids each day at the end of the night, give me a rose and a thorn.
Oh, that's a good
one rose from the day, one rose and thorn. It's a form of journaling. Now, write it down.
Yeah.
One rose, one thorn. One thing that made you happy, one thing that
I love
could
that.
have gone better, right? At the end of the day, go through that. It's always nice to have that little to-do list of what we got tomorrow.
Yeah.
Just so we got that plan so you can sleep with a clear mind and not wake up going, oh, I don't want to forget that thing. Well, no, I'm not going to forget it because when I wake up in the morning, there it is. Sleep freely.
I love that. That's a perfect start. And if I was going to add anything to that, I'd say just do that. And as you start to write, whether it's a to-do list, whether you want to write down some of your goals, your big goals, the crazy ones, the dreams, and underneath, start contemplating why you want that dream. Right. Sometimes you have a dream that's left over from years earlier, and when you dig into your why, you go, I don't think I want that anymore. I want a new version. So I'd say add some dreams and goals and the reason why. But I'll tell you one of the things that really made a game change. Someday I'll show you my journal. I put triple stars next to what I call the needle movers.
Okay.
So I'll go through an old journal. I'll go through the journal I'm in, and it might be a month, 2 months old, and I'll go through it, and I'll look, and I'll read. I'm like, damn, That's a needle, and this is my terminology, it doesn't have to be yours, but to me it's like, that's a needle mover. If I put that in place, it will move my life towards the man I want to be, the husband I want to be, the leader I want to be, the business person I want to be, the income, the impact, whatever. And when I put 3 stars next to something that's a needle mover, I know I got to do it. So just look for the things, and you can do the opposite. You can go, wow, I keep writing that. That thing just sucking life out of me. It really doesn't do anything. So I'd say write down some goals, write down some dreams, write down underneath it why, and then as you start to journal, go back and highlight, circle, bold, put a star, color-coded, use a highlighter of the needle movers.
Yeah. And you'll know, I think, what the needle movers are. I mean,
they'll stand out.
Yeah, even if I've had times in my life where I write things down, I like a long list of to-do lists, but so I'll write down the fun stuff like get a kiss from my wife before I leave, or have an extra yolk in your eggs for breakfast, a little funsy, because I like to go, ooh, I feel accomplished because I got more things to cross out. But I know that the eggs and maybe the kiss was not the big needle mover, but the needle movers are what Dean's talking about. You'll know it's like, okay, this is a paradigm shift. This is going to really help me get on the way to where I want to go. And if you're doing a day-to-day, make sure you carry those needle movers over to the next day. And keep carrying them over.
Pretend it's a yellow page.
Until it's accomplished, right?
Keep writing it.
Because some things we will never mark off our to-do list, thankfully. Some things are going to be on our to-do list, hopefully,
forever,
on our deathbed.
Yeah.
And they should be.
Well, guys, our monthly inner circle is just to give you tools in our toolbox that have helped us. I love when you say we're not getting it all right, we're not making straight A's, but these things have allowed us to live more into the life we wanted to. And then when you see it, give them to other people and they do it and they come back to you and go, wow, it actually made the impact. So I hope today we inspired you to use this tool in any way you wish. You get the opportunity to watch this again if you need to, if you're watching the replay, but start journaling, start slow. If you're already doing it, go deeper, make it a part of your life. It's a pleasure. Carry a pen with you. It's a pleasure to have you here every single month. Here's the cool part. Next time when you come back, being a part of Inner Circle, you're coming back. Next time, can we go deep on being selfish?
You damn right we can.
First person in my life. I loved, last thing I'll say is I listened to a few months back the Ed Milet podcast, and you shocked him on that one. He said, whoa, wait a minute. You're telling me selfish is actually a good thing? So that's the next thing we're going to dig into on our next Inner Circle with Mr. McConaugheys. In the meantime, thanks for spending this time together.
I enjoyed it as always, Dean. Thank y'all for hanging out. I enjoyed that.
See you next time.